All right, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to Dan's Astrology. Today is the 5th of November, and despite all the crazy things going on in the world, I'm pleased to announce that apparently Zohran Mamdani has won the mayoral election in New York City. And I have to admit that I am a Canadian. And when I was recording my full moon video, I kind of neglected to mention whatever this event happening. The fact that I mean, I knew that the elect. I don't know. What can I say? One of my what I have to give you a bit of explanation of my approach to doing this astrology channel. And part of the reason I take the approach that I do is that I'm a Canadian citizen, and in 2025, Canada's sovereignty has been under consistent threat by America, who basically nonetheless consider themselves to be the center of the world, and to the extent that for this reason, I tend to focus more on Canadian politics. And there's a huge, obvious culture industry. The America has become a kind of hub of culture and media and entertainment, to the extent that even a lot of Canadian content creators maybe find it more interesting to focus on what's happening in America rather than what's happening at home in Canada. For this reason, we had a federal election this year when Justin Trudeau stepped down. And in the lead up to that election, I accurately predicted that Mark Carney would win. Or at least I was actually, you know what? I was, I was refraining from making a prediction because I wanted Mark Carney to win, and I felt like I would be biased for predicting that the person that I wanted to win was going to win. But in that circumstance, there were other astrologers, other Canadian astrologers, who, for whatever reason, were predicting that the other guy was going to win. And I should, there's something about it where trying to do political predictions, it's like, there's a certain issue where what kind of an audience do you have? And for your business as an astrologer, you may grow in popularity not by making accurate predictions, but by telling the kind of audience that you have what they want to hear. And also, if the kinds of audience that you're cultivating are people that are cheering on a victory for certain political candidates, then it's sort of like, you gross. Why are you going to be happy are you just going to making this is your neutral, unbiased opinion from all your expertise as an astrologer that this guy's going to win, and then you get it wrong and he doesn't win, but all your fans really like it when you predict that this guy's, it's like, for these kinds of reasons, I hesitate to get involved at that kind of level, because it seems to be more about feeding a demographic of people who lean one way or lean another way. And I have to admit that and I'm also, but there's no way you can be. I'm obviously celebrating a Zohran Mamdani win. I'm obviously happy to see that he wins. And but I've never been to New York City. I've never been to, and part of this whole issue is not just that. Um, no, okay, I have full disclosure here that when it comes to content creation online, and there's a sort of thing about like supporting people's work and what they're doing, is that a number of content what it's the dirty word of content creators, podcasters, people who do things on the internet are having some kind of a I think these guys planned it out pretty well, that you can ride the wave of Mamdani victory, to do this Durations festival. It's all about Henri Bergson. And I had this sort of like, I was kind of like entertaining this idea of like trying to get into Henri Bergson, because there's a through line with Dane Rudhyar, where there's a certain kind of Bergsonian influence on a certain style of astrology. But I don't know. I'm still I didn't take the Bergson course. Haven't read Matter and Memory yet, and I'm slightly annoyed that of America as being, I'm stuck in Vancouver, and Vancouver is typically, if you compare Vancouver to New York City, it's laughable, basically, right? Like especially when it comes to like as a center of what is cool, what is hip, all this kind of stuff. Like it's like it couldn't be farther apart because there's something about how like New York City as like the birthplace of like hip hop culture of the New York punk scene, all this kind of stuff. In Vancouver, it's like the local hip hop here is laughable. Basically, it's like the people who are the most successful in pop music and hip hop from the west coast of Canada are basically like the butt end of a joke, right? The problem about Vancouver and Canada is that like you are if you are at all successful Canadian, then the fact that you come from Canada is then a kind of like magic ink on your resume that erases or something like that. No, like once you've made it, nobody gives a shit if you were born in Canada. Now you have a mansion in LA or something, right? Like the whole point about this is basically that if you are stuck in Canada defining yourself as a Canadian, it's like a mark of shame of a bunch of losers who couldn't make it in America, right? And that basically America sees us as having no point in existing, no like all our we're basically just irrelevant. And so we have to basically forget about our own culture, our own politics, and basically cater to an American audience that we're completely alienated from. And basically, if you're any project that you're going to do, you're going to be like, oh, well, you're just a loser because you're just at your mom's house in Canada and not like living at large in New York City as some really successful person, basically, right? So I have certain frustrations around this, and that there's kind of like nobody's. Well, like I don't know. It's like Vancouver is also like I don't know. Maybe this is just a big distraction, but Vancouver is also a. It's the second most expensive place to live in North America. The most expensive place to live is actually Vancouver. What's odd about this is that I am happy to see Zohran win because he's going to fight for affordability in New York City. Meanwhile, I'm dealing with affordability in Canada, and for me it's a bit better because I'm on a disability pension for mental health things, and that this is so I'm not really even under that much pressure. I'm pretty well taken care of by my kind of in the kind of socialist utopian society known as the West Coast granola belt, and it's like a different universe here, and I'm pleased to see a Zohran Mamdani victory, and nonetheless, I'm slightly as the thing is what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with the moment of victory. To get back to the astrology, the moon in Aries approaching the full moon conjunct Chiron on the day of the election. Not what's interesting is that this is not quite a full moon yet, but on once he wins and the aftermath where his victory is announced, we have the full moon where you have the moon. The moon, I think, in a night, it's the moon is. What would you say? What kind of dignity is the moon in Taurus? It's an exalted moon, right? And the exalted moon is getting a 10-degree sextile from Jupiter, and exalted Jupiter in Cancer. America having its Jupiter return. We had Jupiter is supposed to stand for good luck, and 2025 does not seem like a very fortunate or lucky year for America. And so I think it's at least a good omen that Zohran gets elected with a Jupiter in Cancer sextiling the full moon in Taurus, even though, and then, maybe on the election day, it would be more of a square between the moon and that Jupiter in Cancer. But this is basically, yeah, I don't know. I'm perhaps not going to be able. I'm not. I guess I could edit this video out, but I'm kind of including basically my raw, unedited reaction to this because I'm happy that Zoran's winning. But you have to understand that I have a. I'm just going to reveal the fact that I am a Venus in Scorpio native, and as a Venus in Scorpio, one of the one of the reasons why I have been drawn to study astrology is that I one of the problems of Venus and Scorpio is basically jealousy. And so basically, what's happening here is that Venus is going to be, after this full moon, Venus is ingressing into Scorpio and conjoining Zohran Mamdani's Mars, meaning that Zohran Mamdani is probably going to be partying hard, celebrating his victory, and New York is going to be bumping, and that me as a Venus in Scorpio, I'm going to be stuck at my mom's house in Vancouver, BC, where there's bands have stopped touring here, people have stopped. I don't know. There's basically we do have good old DOA. We do have the pointed sticks. We do have there's some classic Vancouver bands that are still going, but I don't go out and party anymore. I basically live a quiet life with my mother, and I've taken to reading philosophy books as a way to pass the time while my mother naps and sleeps, because it's a way that I can enhance my civilized intellectual outlook on life and not disturb her while she rests. But secretly, I yearn to live it up in New York City and party, or at least I'm jealous and resentful of the fact that I have to stay here in Vancouver where there's no fun things happening. But the thing is, I have to also explain to you that part of the appeal, well, part of the problem is the element of danger, right? The fact is that I am a hardcore West Coast socialist, environmentalist, and also a person who is drawing on the lifeblood of the working class. I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, I worked a goddamn job. If I'll do it again if necessary. But the point is that there's a certain kind of political tension in America right now, where there is the people who are identified as being anti-fascists or anti-capitalists have been targeted by the American government as being, an organized force of revolt against the administration. And because I have been somewhat liberal about my self-expression online, I'm somewhat paranoid and afraid to go to America, but I want to anyways. And there's something about I kind of am just basically, I'm feeling very separate from New York City. I've never been there. I've never been to LA. I've only ever been to Seattle. And what can like, does anybody care about going to Seattle? Probably not, So I'm my own personal emotions of jealousy. I'm happy though for you guys in New York City. I hope it makes your city more affordable. I hope you appreciate your free public transit, and I hope that the rent is easier to pay, and that you don't have to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month. Now the thing is, I don't know about you guys in New York City, but I've actually. I don't actually no. I'm not gonna get into my own stories about renting and finding places to live and all this kind of stuff. The point is that rather than being jealous that I'm not there for the party, I'm happy to see that Zoran's going. Whatever, you guys are making some progress in this project for a progressive socialist society where things are actually affordable. There's the inequalities, the gross inequalities of society are starting to be corrected. And I was thinking about expounding more on this, but I'm not going to right now. Um, the other thing about this is that there's certain transits that are interesting here. That Zoran has a Saturn in Aquarius, and it's conjunct with Pluto in Aquarius right now, and that at Uranus is at 00 Gemini, about to retrograde into Taurus. And so there's something about the Saturn Pluto conjunction of Zoran Mamdani, and that he's got this moon in Aquarius, and the something about the age of error that we're entering. For example, people complimented, or one of the, apparently part of the reason that Zoran did so well was he was able to harness the power of social media, and so this could be part of the activation of Uranus and Gemini making this trine to Pluto and that hitting his Saturn. But also, these are politically difficult times, especially in New York City, especially for America. And there's a certain level of difficulty in imagine what must be like to be Zoran and all the resistance or the what kind of opposition you get for trying to do this kind of politics in New York City. And I think that the Saturn in Aquarius, that is a traditional dignity, a Saturn, a well dignified Saturn. So this is a man who's there to take on the big baddies of power, the old, I think there's something about how the fall of the old order, the collapse, you could say, of a certain kind of power structure that I think the chart with that 00 Saturn and that 01 Pluto and the 00 Uranus is indicative of the ushering in of a kind of a new age of politics, a way, and the Pluto being there's a certain kind of a elimination with Pluto, eliminating the old order of the hierarchies of new and making a fertile ground for the younger generations who are hip to, which in a with Uranus and Gemini, a free flowing communication where you've got the old power structures and you've got a kind of fresh new technological breath of fresh air, and also with it's also keep in mind that Mars in Mars and Mercury were also Mars is also opposing Uranus at this time. I There's some other, I don't know. It's a little bit, the Mars Uranus thing is a little bit stressful because I'm worried that there could be like some sort of violent retaliation from his political enemies or something like that. But fingers crossed, we don't have to worry about that one. Um, we'll see how it goes. I'm Again, I'm sorry. I'm not. If you want to have a more straightforward take on American, like I think part of the what I'm trying to do here is that if you want to have a very focused take on American politics, you have to understand that anything that I'm going to give you here is going to be colored by the fact that I am a disabled Canadian who inherently is hostile to people who want to take away my disability benefits, and who's also inherently somewhat resentful that other people are probably going to be having more fun than me in the centers of the culture that would be the big American cities, and I'm stuck in a kind of a boring West Coast center. But at least we got Naomi Klein. At least we got David Suzuki. At least we got Joe Keithley. At least we got all these great, Randy Bachman, American Woman. You know what I'm saying? Mama Let Me Be. Okay, thanks for watching.